The starship Zetherian Voyager glided silently above Earth's atmosphere, its metallic surface gleaming under the distant sun. Inside, a group of young Zetherian students prepared themselves for their first mission, exploring a planet unlike any they had studied before. Earth was famous throughout the galaxy for its biodiversity, strange creatures and intelligent inhabitants called humans. For Zetherians, warriors and scholars alike, Earth was a challenge, and these students were eager to prove themselves. Among them was Rockthar, the strongest of the group. His muscles rippled under his armor, his eyes sharp and calculating. Rockthar had been trained since birth to be fearless, to conquer any challenge and to overcome any danger. To him, Earth seemed like a playground for the strong, a place where no ordinary creature could pose a threat. His peers, younger students with less combat experience, looked at him with admiration and a little envy. The ship landed in a dense forest, its engines humming softly. Trees stretched high into the sky, their leaves forming a thick green canopy. Birds flew above, chirping in languages Rockthar could not understand. Streams glimmered under the sunlight, and the air smelled fresh, rich with life. To the Zetherians, it was strange and unfamiliar. A world ruled not by sheer strength, but by subtlety and adaptability. "Welcome to Earth," said Liara, the mission leader. Her antenna twitched with excitement. "Remember, our goal is observation and learning. Study the creatures, note their abilities, and report. We are not here to interfere, at least not yet." The students donned their exploration suits, which allowed them to breathe Earth's oxygen comfortably. Each carried scanning devices, nutrient packs, and small containers to collect samples. Rockthar, as always, took the lead, stepping confidently into the forest. Every branch, every leaf, every tiny movement caught his attention. To him, it was all just scenery, a place where no real threat could exist. Hours passed as the students moved through the undergrowth. They observed birds building nests, insects carrying food, and small mammals hiding in burrows. Liara pointed to a cluster of bright mushrooms and explained how some could be poisonous to Earth's creatures. The students recorded everything meticulously, fascinated by the complexity of life on this tiny planet. Then, they found it, a spider, no bigger than a pebble. Its body was shiny and dark, with legs that moved in precise, careful motions. Rockthar bent down, examining it closely. "Look at this," he said, his voice filled with amusement. "Can anything this small possibly be dangerous? Not even my claws could harm it." One of the younger students, Tiri, laughed nervously. "It's so tiny. How could it hurt a warrior like you?" The spider paused, raising its tiny front legs in a defensive stance. Its fangs glimmered, and Rockthar, confident as ever, scoffed. "This is nothing. I've faced storms, beasts, and creatures 10 times my size. A little spider cannot scare me." Still, curiosity got the better of him. He gently picked up the spider with his armored fingers, holding it close to his face. The spider hissed softly, a sound almost too faint for human ears, but clear enough for Zetherian senses. It seemed harmless, yet Rockthar could feel its tiny body vibrating with tension. The other students watched with a mix of amusement and concern. "Are you really going to hold it?" Tiri asked. "It's so small. Maybe we should just leave it alone." Rockthar laughed. "Fear makes the weak falter. I will show you that size does not matter. Only strength and courage do." As he held the spider, he did not notice the faint movement of its legs, precise, calculated, and dangerous. The spider's venom, evolved over millions of years, was designed to paralyze prey far larger than itself. Rockthar, used to overpowering monsters and surviving extreme conditions, could not yet comprehend the danger he held. Nearby, Liara shook her head. "Rockthar, be careful. You cannot judge every creature by its size." "Relax," Rockthar replied. "I am the strongest among you. Nothing on this planet can hurt me." He smiled, confident, his pride shining in his eyes. The students continued their exploration, following streams and moving deeper into the forest. Rockthar carried the spider with him, joking about how Earth's wildlife was primitive compared to Zetherian beasts. Yet, even as he spoke, the spider's tiny legs moved in subtle patterns, its eyes observing him, its venom ready. As they walked, the forest seemed to change. Shadows lengthened and the sounds of insects and birds grew louder. Rockthar's sensors detected nothing threatening, yet a faint unease settled over him. Not from fear, but from curiosity. There was something in this forest, something small but alert that even he could not predict. The students stopped near a clearing. Sunlight poured down, illuminating patches of moss and flowers. Rokthar placed the spider on a leaf, watching it move. See? It does nothing. Harmless. Even if it tried, it could not hurt me. The spider paused, as if listening. Then, almost imperceptibly, it raised its front legs, the fangs glinting in the sunlight. Rokthar leaned closer, inspecting it. At that moment, he noticed a faint twitch, a warning. Curious, he muttered. It reacts to my presence. Interesting. Liara approached, scanning the area. Do not underestimate it, she warned. Even small predators on Earth have evolved with clever strategies. Some may appear weak, but they survive because they are smart, precise, and patient. Rokthar chuckled. Patience is for the weak. Strength overcomes everything. But as he spoke, a subtle prickling sensation ran through his fingers where the spider had bitten him. Rokthar froze. The other students gasped. Tiri stepped forward. Rokthar, did it bite you? Rokthar examined his hand, confused. The bite was almost invisible, barely a mark. I don't feel much, he said. It's nothing. Probably a reflex. Do not worry. Liara's antennae twitched nervously. Sometimes danger is not immediate. Some Earth creatures are slow-acting but deadly. We should monitor you closely. Rokthar waved her off, smiling with overconfidence. You worry too much. I am Rokthar. This tiny spider cannot harm me. Yet deep inside, a faint awareness began to grow, a whisper of caution that he had never experienced before. Even Rokthar, the strongest Zetherian, could not ignore the subtle intelligence of the tiny creature before him. As the students moved deeper into the forest, the spider followed Rokthar's hand, its movements precise and calculated. Though it was small, it carried a silent threat, a reminder that size was not the measure of power. The day ended with the students setting up a temporary camp in a small clearing. Fireflies glowed in the twilight, birds settled in the trees, and the sounds of the forest filled the night. Rokthar placed the spider in a small container, confident that it posed no threat. Yet, as he drifted to sleep, he could not shake the feeling that this tiny earth creature was different from anything he had faced before. In his dreams, the spider seemed larger, more powerful, its eyes gleaming with intelligence. Rokthar, unaccustomed to feeling challenged by something so small, stirred uneasily. The forest was alive in ways the Zetherians could not yet understand. Every leaf, every insect, and every hidden predator had a role to play in the delicate balance of life on Earth. And in the center of it all, the smallest spider waited, patient and unassuming, ready to show that even the mightiest warrior could face danger in unexpected ways. As night deepened, the stars twinkled above the forest canopy. Rokthar, proud and strong, dreamed of conquest and victory. Yet somewhere deep within the forest, a tiny spider prepared for the challenge of a lifetime. And thus began the Zetherian student's journey on Earth, a journey of discovery, humility, and the realization that strength alone was not enough to survive on this remarkable planet. Morning sunlight filtered through the thick forest canopy, casting golden rays on the Zetherian camp. The students stirred from their sleep, stretching and preparing for a day of exploration. Rokthar was already awake, sitting near a small stream, examining the tiny spider he had collected the previous day. He had placed it in a clear container with air holes, confident that nothing this small could harm him. Rokthar, are you certain you want to keep that creature so close? Liara asked, her voice calm but firm. Her antennae twitched with concern. We observed its movements last night. It is small, yes, but Earth creatures are not to be underestimated. Rokthar laughed, flexing his strong arms. Liara, I am the strongest warrior among you. Nothing on this planet, not even a creature a fraction of my size, can threaten me. This spider is harmless. Despite his words, a small part of him remembered the faint prickling from the bite yesterday. He had shrugged it off, confident that his Zetherian body could handle anything. Yet the memory lingered, faint but persistent, a whisper of caution he was not used to hearing. The students decided to split into groups for the day's study. Rokthar, as always, led the way. Tiri and a few others followed, recording data and scanning the forest for unusual life forms. Rokthar placed the spider back in his container and carried it with him. The forest was alive with movement. Tiny insects crawled over leaves, birds sang in strange patterns, and small mammals darted between the roots of ancient trees. To the Zetherians, it seemed almost peaceful. Rokthar felt no immediate threat. He had faced storms, wild beasts, and even venomous creatures on distant planets, and had always emerged victorious. Look at that, Thierry said suddenly, pointing to a cluster of brightly colored flowers. These seem harmless, but some earth plants are dangerous to even humans. We should record them. Liara nodded. Yes, observation is key. Remember, intelligence and adaptability are just as important as strength here. Rockthar barely listened. His mind wandered to the spider. He wondered almost out of boredom. What would happen if he allowed it to bite him intentionally? It seemed like a trivial test, and he wanted to prove once and for all that nothing on Earth could challenge him. Rockthar, be careful, Liara warned. Do not provoke it unnecessarily. You may regret underestimating its abilities. Rockthar ignored her warning. He removed the spider from the container and held it between his fingers, studying its tiny fangs. This will be interesting, he murmured. Let's see if it has any real power. The spider hesitated, sensing the vibrations from Rockthar's strong fingers. Its instinct screamed danger, yet it was precise and patient. In one sudden motion, faster than the human eye could follow, it bit his hand. Rockthar barely flinched. See, nothing. A minor pinch at most. Thierry's eyes widened in alarm. Rockthar, did you just let it bite you? Rockthar flexed his fingers, examining the tiny puncture. The mark was almost invisible. Yes, it is harmless. I told you this creature cannot threaten me. For a few minutes, everything seemed normal. The students continued their exploration, and Rockthar even laughed, teasing them about their nervousness. But gradually, he began to feel something strange. His muscles, usually rock-solid and powerful, felt heavy. A dull ache spread through his arms and legs, and his vision blurred slightly. What is happening? Rockthar muttered, frowning. The sensation was unfamiliar, a creeping weakness he had never experienced. Liara immediately noticed. Rockthar, step aside. Something is wrong. The venom. It is affecting you differently than any creature we have studied. You need medical attention. Rockthar, stubborn and proud, shook his head. I am fine. This is nothing. My body is strong. My training, he could not finish. The dull ache spread rapidly, making it hard to focus. Even his sharp Cytherian senses dimmed. His movements became sluggish, and his normally confident posture faltered. The students panicked, unsure how to respond. Thierry grabbed Rockthar's arm. You're not fine. We need to get you back to the camp. Rockthar tried to resist, but the venom spread faster than he expected. It was not only strong, it was intelligent in its own way, targeting muscles and senses with precision. Rockthar realized, perhaps for the first time, that Earth's smallest creatures could wield deadly power. The students formed a protective circle around him, scanning the forest for threats while carrying Rockthar back to their camp. The spider, now safely contained, seemed innocent once more, but Rockthar knew the danger it had posed. Back at the camp, Liara and the other students worked quickly. Cytherian technology was advanced, but it was ineffective against the spider's venom. They tried chemical neutralizers and energy pulses, but nothing worked immediately. Rockthar, lying on a padded surface, struggled to stay conscious. This is incredible, Rockthar muttered weakly. A creature so small. Can it really do this to me? Liara shook her head. Yes, Earth creatures are deceptive. Their size does not reflect their potential. Humans survive alongside them because they learn, adapt, and respect the power of their environment. Rockthar's pride fought against the realization. For centuries, Cytherians had believed that raw strength and speed were the ultimate measures of survival. Now he faced undeniable proof that intelligence, patience, and precise adaptation could defeat even the strongest warrior. Hours passed. The students monitored him tirelessly. The initial weakness spread through his body, but slowly, with careful observation, Rockthar began to stabilize. He was not fully healed yet, but the danger had passed enough for him to sit up and see his peers' faces. Thierry, normally shy, spoke quietly. Rockthar, maybe we should study the humans and their ways more closely. They live with creatures like this every day. They survive where even you struggled. Rockthar nodded slowly. The words sank in. He had faced countless battles across galaxies, yet Earth's smallest spider had humbled him. He felt something he rarely experienced. Respect for the subtle power of life forms smaller and seemingly weaker than himself. Liara observed him, a small smile on her face. This is the lesson, Rockthar. Power is not just about strength. It is about understanding, adaptation, and respect for the environment. Even your strongest skills are useless if you ignore the intelligence around you. The day faded into evening. The forest glowed with fireflies and the sounds of nocturnal creatures filled the air. Rokthar sat quietly, reflecting on what had happened. He had survived, but only just. The spider had shown him that Earth was different from any planet he had ever known. Size and strength were not everything. Intelligence and cunning mattered just as much. As night settled over the camp, Rokthar carefully placed the spider back in its small container. He studied it not with arrogance, but with a new sense of awareness. "You are clever," he murmured. "Small but powerful in ways I never expected." The students watched in silence, sensing a change in their strongest warrior. Rokthar, once confident that nothing on Earth could challenge him, now understood the subtle balance of life on this planet. He realized that even the tiniest creatures could teach lessons about survival, strategy and respect, and somewhere in the darkness, hidden among the forest leaves, the spider waited patiently, its fangs glinting faintly. It had defended itself perfectly, demonstrating that Earth's creatures were not to be underestimated no matter their size. The night passed quietly, but the Zetherian students could not sleep easily. The encounter with the tiny spider had shaken their assumptions. They knew that tomorrow and the days after, Earth would continue to teach them lessons they had never expected, and Rokthar, the strongest of them all, had learned his first lesson in humility, one that would stay with him forever. The forest was alive with sounds, chirping birds, rustling leaves, and the quiet movement of creatures that only came out at dawn. The Zetherian students remained in their camp, tense and watchful. Rokthar, who had always been the embodiment of strength and confidence, lay on a padded mat, his breathing uneven. His body, once powerful and unstoppable, felt weak and unfamiliar. Liara sat beside him, her antennae flicking nervously. "We must monitor him carefully," she said. "The venom is subtle, but effective. Rokthar has never experienced anything like this." Tiri, standing nearby, glanced at Rokthar with concern. He always believes he can overcome everything with strength. Now he's learning that there's more to survival than power. Rokthar stirred, opening his eyes slowly. His sharp gaze was dimmed, replaced by confusion and frustration. I cannot feel my strength," he muttered. "This is impossible." Liara shook her head gently. "Nothing is impossible, Rokthar, but some things require more than raw power. Intelligence, patience, observation. They matter just as much as strength." Rokthar clenched his fists, trying to move, but even the smallest motions were difficult. He had never experienced weakness in his life. The Zetherians trained for endurance, for resilience, for battle, but never had one of them been rendered helpless by something so small. The students worked together to study the spider and its venom. They scanned its biology, its movements, and the chemical composition of its bite. Tiri, normally quiet, spoke up. "This venom, it is precise. It targets specific muscles and nerves. Rokthar's strength is his weakness here. He relies too much on it." Liara nodded. "Exactly. The spider is small, but it has evolved to survive. Humans coexist with creatures like this every day. They do not rely solely on strength. They use intelligence, tools, and strategy to live in a world full of dangers." Rokthar listened, slowly realizing the truth in her words. He had faced storms, predators, and harsh planets, but Earth was different. Its creatures were clever, subtle, and persistent. He had always believed that raw strength was the ultimate measure of survival. Now, for the first time, he understood that strength alone was not enough. Hours passed. The students took turns monitoring Rokthar's condition. They adjusted his hydration levels, administered nutrients, and used Zetherian medical technology to support his body. The venom could not be fully neutralized by their devices, but careful observation prevented it from worsening. During this time, Rokthar reflected on his own arrogance. He remembered how he had scoffed at the spider yesterday, confident it could never harm him. And now he was lying weak, relying on the support of his fellow students. For the first time, he understood what it meant to be humble. Tiri approached him with a datapad. "Rokthar, look at this," she said. "The spider's venom works because it is part of a balanced system. On Earth, even small creatures have evolved defenses. Humans use these systems to survive. They are intelligent, adaptive, and resourceful." Rokthar examined the information. The spider's venom targeted only specific parts of the body, but humans had learned ways to avoid or neutralize similar threats. They used fire, smoke, tools, and observation to outsmart dangerous creatures. He realized that Earth was a planet that did not rely on sheer power alone. It relied on cleverness and understanding, Liara spoke again, softly but firmly. Strength is important, Rockthar, but it is not everything. On Earth, creatures smaller than you can defeat those larger than themselves. Humans survive alongside predators and environmental challenges because they respect the balance of life and use their minds to adapt. Rockthar's pride struggled against this truth. He had been trained to lead, to conquer, to never show weakness. And yet here he was, humbled by a tiny spider. His body was recovering, but his mind was transformed. He began to see the value of strategy, caution, and respect for other forms of life. That evening, the students decided to examine the spider's habitat. Rockthar insisted on accompanying them, though his movements were slow. The spider was released into a small, controlled environment, a glass terrarium designed to mimic its natural surroundings. The students observed how it moved, hunted, and reacted to stimuli. "It is fascinating," Tiri said, pointing to the spider's precise movements. "It waits for the right moment to strike. It does not attack recklessly. It uses patience and observation." Rockthar watched, silent. He realized the lesson was not just about this spider, it was about Earth itself. Every creature, every plant, every system had evolved for survival in ways that required intelligence and cunning. His strength, while remarkable, could not override these subtle forces. The students spent hours documenting the spider's behavior. Rockthar asked questions, listened carefully, and even admitted when he did not understand something. For a warrior who had always relied on confidence and physical power, this was a difficult change. Night fell again, and the forest seemed more alive than ever. Crickets chirped, owls hooted, and tiny creatures moved unseen among the roots. Rockthar sat quietly, reflecting on the day's events. The spider had taught him a lesson he could not forget. Small, intelligent, and precise, it had proven that size and strength alone did not define power. Liara approached him once more. "Tomorrow we will continue our study. We will observe more creatures, and we will learn more about how humans survive in this environment. Your experience today is only the beginning." Rockthar nodded. "I understand. I was arrogant. I thought strength would solve everything. Now I see. I was wrong." Tiri smiled, a mix of relief and admiration. "Even the strongest warriors can learn, Rockthar. That is what makes humans, and now us, truly capable. Strength alone is not enough. We must combine it with intelligence, patience, and respect." Rockthar's eyes softened. For the first time, he felt a sense of gratitude toward the small spider. It had challenged him, humbled him, and taught him something that no training or battle could. He realized that Earth's creatures, no matter how small, were worthy of respect. The night deepened, and the students prepared to rest. Rockthar lay back on his mat, thinking about what he had learned. His body was recovering, but his mind was awakened. He understood now that every environment, every creature, and every challenge required more than physical might. Adaptability, intelligence, and respect were equally important. As sleep overtook him, Rockthar dreamed not of battles or conquest, but of the tiny spider, moving patiently, waiting for the perfect moment. In his dream, the spider's small form seemed larger, more powerful, and filled with purpose. He understood that the smallest beings could teach the greatest lessons, and that humility was a strength in itself. The forest outside was quiet, yet full of life. Rockthar's fellow students slept nearby, reflecting on the lessons of the day. They had witnessed the strength of a tiny creature, the vulnerability of a mighty warrior, and the value of intelligence and adaptability. Earth had begun to teach them, and they were learning quickly. When dawn arrived, the first rays of sunlight illuminated the forest. Birds sang, insects moved, and the spider, small, unassuming, yet deadly, continued its quiet life in the terrarium. Rockthar rose slowly, feeling stronger, wiser, and more aware. He knew that tomorrow, the lessons would continue, and he would approach them not with arrogance, but with curiosity and respect. The students prepared for another day of exploration, carrying with them the knowledge that Earth's small creatures were not to be underestimated. Rockthar, once proud and unyielding, had begun to change. He understood that survival required mind as well as muscle, and that intelligence and humility were just as powerful as strength. And somewhere, deep in the forest, the tiny spider waited, patient as ever, ready to teach another lesson to those who underestimated the cleverness of Earth's smallest defenders. The morning sun filtered softly through the trees, painting the forest in shades of green and gold. Rockthar, now more alert and stronger than the previous day, stood carefully outside the camp. His muscles had regained their firmness, but his mind remained alert with a new awareness. He remembered the tiny spider, the way it had humbled him, and the lesson it had taught. Strength alone was not enough. Liara gathered the students. "Today we will study more than just individual creatures," she explained. "We will observe how humans interact with their environment. They survive among dangerous plants, predators, and even tiny threats like the spider. Their intelligence is what allows them to thrive." The students listened intently. They had already begun to understand the value of observation, patience, and strategy. But Liara's plan promised deeper insights. Rokthar's eyes glimmered with curiosity, his pride now tempered by respect. He was ready to learn. As they traveled deeper into the forest, the students noticed signs of human activity. Small paths cleared through dense vegetation, makeshift bridges over streams, and carefully constructed shelters hidden among the trees. It was clear that humans had studied the land, learned its patterns, and adapted to its challenges. Tiri scanned one of the paths with her device. "These humans, they are clever," she said. "They do not rely on brute strength. They observe, plan, and use tools. Every step they take is calculated." Rokthar nodded slowly. "I see it now. Their survival is not based on power alone. It is based on intelligence, teamwork, and respect for the world around them." The students reached a clearing where a small group of humans were examining a cluster of plants near a stream. The humans moved carefully, taking samples and recording data. Their tools were simple compared to Zytherian technology, but their efficiency and precision were remarkable. Liara motioned for the students to observe quietly. "Notice how they work together," she whispered. "Every movement is purposeful. They understand the balance of nature. They do not take unnecessary risks, yet they accomplish more than brute force alone could achieve." Rokthar watched closely. He saw a human gently move a rock to uncover a small insect, careful not to harm it. Another human noted its position, size, and behavior, recording details for later study. The humans worked seamlessly, supporting each other, observing and responding to challenges. Tiri whispered, "Even small creatures like the spider are accounted for. They plan for everything." Rokthar's mind reflected on his own experience. He had underestimated the tiny spider and paid the price. Now, watching humans adapt to their environment, he understood that intelligence and strategy were not weaknesses. They were strengths in a different form. Liara then proposed a new experiment. "We will collaborate with the humans, observe how they interact with the forest and its creatures, learn from them and apply their methods. It is time to combine our knowledge with theirs." The students approached cautiously, introducing themselves. Humans, though initially startled by the alien visitors, soon recognized their intentions. With gestures and simple translations, communication became possible. The humans welcomed the Zytherians, intrigued by their appearance and technology, yet unafraid. One human, a biologist named Dr. Mara, offered to guide them through the forest. "We've lived here among these creatures for years," she explained. "We study them, protect them, and adapt to their ways. If you wish to learn, I can show you how we do it." Rokthar nodded, humbled. "We wish to learn. Your methods, they are impressive." Dr. Mara smiled. "Strength is not always necessary. Observation, timing, and understanding are often more powerful." Over the next several hours, the Zytherian students worked alongside the humans. They studied small creatures, tracked their movements, and recorded their behavior. Rokthar observed how humans use simple tools to protect themselves from hazards: smoke to keep insects away, nets to catch small animals for study, and natural barriers to avoid dangerous paths. The students were amazed. Despite lacking Zytherian strength, the humans were efficient, effective, and careful. Rokthar realized that humans' intelligence allowed them to coexist with creatures far larger or more dangerous than themselves. Their adaptability was a form of power he had never fully appreciated. At one point, they returned to the spider's terrarium. Rokthar knelt beside it, watching its precise movements. "Even this tiny creature has taught me lessons," he said softly. "Its patience, timing, and awareness. Humans have learned to respect and survive with such creatures." Tiri added, "It is incredible. We rely on strength, yet they rely on understanding. That is why they thrive," Liara smiled. "Exactly. Strength is important, but it is not everything. Intelligence, observation, and cooperation are equally valuable. That is why humans succeed here." Rokthar spent the rest of the day applying what he had learned. He moved with greater caution, observed his surroundings more closely, and anticipated the reactions of small creatures. For the first time, he understood that true strength included the ability to adapt, learn, and respect the world around you. By evening, the students and humans gathered near a stream to rest. The sun dipped below the trees, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Rokthar sat quietly reflecting on the day's lessons. The humans had shown him that cooperation and intelligence were powerful tools, sometimes more effective than brute force. Dr. Mara approached him, holding a small notebook. "You've been observing carefully," she said. "Your warrior instincts are strong, but you are learning the other side of survival: patience, understanding, and respect. That is what allows humans to coexist with this world." Rokthar nodded, a sense of humility settling over him. "I underestimated this planet and its creatures. I see now that strength is not everything. Intelligence and respect are just as important." Tiri grinned. "Even our strongest warrior has learned to be humble." Rokthar allowed himself a small smile. For the first time, he did not feel the need to prove himself. He understood that learning from others, even those seemingly weaker than him, was a true mark of strength. As night fell, the forest came alive with creatures stirring in the darkness. Owls hooted, insects hummed, and small animals moved unseen among the roots. The spider, still in its terrarium, moved carefully, observing its environment as if understanding the humans and Zetherians watching it. Rokthar realized that the forest, the humans, and even the smallest creatures were all part of a balanced system. Every being had a role, every action had a purpose. Strength alone could not guarantee survival. Wisdom, observation, and cooperation were essential. The Zetherian students prepared to rest, but their minds were active. They had witnessed the cleverness of humans, the intelligence of Earth's creatures, and the lessons that came from humility. Rokthar, once proud and overconfident, had begun to change. He understood now that the journey on Earth was not about conquest. It was about learning, adapting, and respecting the power of life in all its forms. Before closing his eyes, Rokthar glanced at the spider one last time. Its tiny form seemed even more remarkable now, a living symbol of the lessons he had learned. Small but precise, clever, and patient, it had demonstrated that power could take many forms, and that even the strongest warrior could learn from the smallest creature. The forest settled into quiet night sounds, and the students drifted into sleep, dreaming not of battles, but of discovery and understanding. Rokthar's dreams were filled with images of humans moving carefully through the forest, small creatures thriving in their habitats, and the tiny spider waiting patiently for the next challenge. He understood, finally, that Earth's strength lay not in any single being, but in the balance of intelligence, patience, and cooperation. The lessons of the day were clear. Respect for others, no matter how small or seemingly weak, was a mark of true strength, and somewhere in the forest, hidden among leaves and shadows, the spider remained vigilant, a silent teacher reminding all who observed it that even the tiniest life forms could command respect and influence the course of even the strongest warriors. The students would leave Earth one day, but the lessons they learned here would remain. Rokthar had learned humility, patience, and the value of cooperation. The humans had taught them to respect intelligence and strategy, and the forest, with its countless creatures both large and small, had shown them that survival was not just about strength, it was about understanding, adapting, and thriving in harmony with the world. Tomorrow, they would continue their studies, but tonight, they rested with a new appreciation for Earth and its remarkable inhabitants. Rokthar closed his eyes, finally at peace with the knowledge that true power comes not only from strength, but from the wisdom to use it wisely and the humility to learn from others. The first rays of morning sunlight broke through the forest canopy, casting a warm glow over the camp. Rokthar stood quietly, gazing at the trees, streams, and creatures moving among the roots and foliage. He had grown stronger over the past days, but it was not only his body that had changed, it was his mind. The spider, the humans, and the forest itself had taught him lessons he would carry forever. Liara gathered the students. Today we will prepare to return to Zetheria. Our mission has been more than observation. We have learned from Earth, from its creatures, and from its humans. Remember these lessons. They will guide you in all future challenges. The students nodded. Even the youngest, Tiri, had grown significantly in confidence and understanding. They had seen firsthand that strength alone could not overcome all dangers. The spider, a tiny creature no larger than a pebble, had humbled their strongest warrior. Humans had taught them that intelligence, cooperation, and adaptability could surpass brute power. Rokthar stepped forward. "I have learned more than I expected," he said, his voice steady and thoughtful. "I believed strength was everything. I believed no creature could challenge me. But Earth has shown me otherwise. Even the smallest spider can outmatch the strongest warrior if one underestimates it." The students listened intently, absorbing every word. Rokthar's respect for Earth's creatures had grown, and his pride was tempered with humility. "Strength is valuable," he continued, "but understanding, patience, and respect are equally powerful. Humans in their world are living proof of this truth." Liara smiled. "Well said, Rokthar. We have observed, learned, and grown. Now it is time to return home, carrying the knowledge and wisdom Earth has given us." The students prepared their samples and notes. They carefully returned the spider to its natural habitat, placing it among the leaves and small plants where it could thrive. Rokthar knelt and watched the tiny creature move with careful precision, aware of the incredible lessons it had provided. "You have taught me patience and respect," Rokthar whispered to the spider. "You are small, but your power lies in intelligence and awareness. I will never forget you." The humans, including Dr. Mara, joined the students at the edge of the forest. They had shared knowledge and guidance, helping the Zetherians understand Earth's complex balance of life. Rokthar bowed slightly in respect. "You have taught us more than we could have imagined," Rokthar said sincerely. "Your cleverness, your observation, and your cooperation have opened our eyes. Humans are truly remarkable." Dr. Mara smiled warmly. "And you too are remarkable. You have strength and courage. But today, you have learned that true power is more than physical. It is wisdom, humility, and the ability to learn from others." The students boarded their starship, the Zetherian Voyager, feeling a mix of pride, humility, and gratitude. Rokthar, sitting at the front, gazed out at the forest one last time. The humans waved, the stream sparkled, and the trees swayed gently in the morning breeze. Every creature, every movement, and every sound reminded him that strength alone was only part of survival. As the ship lifted off, the forest shrank beneath them, but the lessons remained vivid in their minds. Rokthar turned to Liara. "I will never forget this experience. The smallest spider, the humans, this forest, they have all shown me the true meaning of power. We will take this knowledge home and use it wisely." Liara nodded. "And that is the most important lesson. Knowledge and respect are as vital as strength. Remember this and you will succeed wherever you go." During the journey back to Zetheria, the students discussed what they had learned. Terry spoke excitedly. "Even though humans are not physically strong like us, they thrive because they use their minds. They plan, observe, and respect every creature." "That is incredible," Rokthar agreed. "Yes, strength can only take you so far. To survive, adapt, and lead, you need intelligence, patience, and humility. Earth has taught us what true power is." The ship's sensors picked up small signals from Earth's ecosystem as it receded into the distance. Rokthar smiled. Even from orbit he could see the intricate balance of life. The streams, the forests, the tiny creatures moving carefully. Earth was a living example of intelligence, resilience, and harmony. Back on Zetheria, the students shared their findings with their peers and instructors. They presented data on the spider, human methods, and Earth's complex ecosystem. Their presentations emphasized not only biological facts but also the deeper lessons: humility, respect, and the value of combining strength with intelligence. Rokthar stood at the center of the gathering, speaking confidently. "We have learned that no matter how strong we are, there are forces we cannot control with power alone. Intelligence, patience, observation, and respect are necessary for true survival. Humans have mastered this on their planet. We have much to learn from them." The other Zetherians listened, some skeptical at first, but soon understanding the truth in Rokthar's words. Even warriors trained to conquer and dominate could see the value of intelligence and humility. The lessons of Earth were universal. They applied to all worlds and all challenges. Days later, Rokthar returned to training, but his approach had changed. He no longer relied solely on brute strength. Instead, he combined his natural power with careful observation, strategic thinking, and patience. Every opponent, every challenge, and every environment became an opportunity to apply what he had learned from Earth. "Thierry, Liara and the other students continued their studies, inspired by the humans and the tiny spider. They practiced teamwork, observation, and strategy, understanding that true power was a combination of mind, body, and respect for life. Rockthar often remembered the tiny spider, patient and precise in its movements. Its bite had been a warning, a lesson, and a teacher. He realized that Earth's smallest creatures could hold more power than the mightiest warriors if underestimated. Strength is nothing without understanding, he told his fellow students one day. Adaptability, patience, and respect make a warrior truly powerful. Never forget the lessons we learned on Earth. Years later, Zetherian society would recognize the wisdom of the Earth mission. Rockthar's experiences inspired new generations of students, warriors, and scholars. They learned to approach challenges not with arrogance but with curiosity and respect. They studied other worlds, knowing that intelligence and cooperation were as crucial as strength. The humans of Earth remained unaware of the Zetherians' journey, yet their lives and cleverness had left a profound mark. The tiny spider continued its quiet life in the forest, a symbol of Earth's hidden strength, intelligence, and the lessons that even the smallest beings could teach. Rockthar, once overconfident and fearless in his strength, had grown into a leader who combined power with wisdom. He knew that survival was not about conquering others. It was about learning, adapting, and respecting the balance of life. Earth had taught him that, and he would never forget. As the Zetherian students continued their journeys to other worlds, the lessons of Earth guided them. They approached new planets, creatures, and challenges with humility, observation, and intelligence. They respected the environment, understood the power of adaptation, and remembered that even the tiniest life forms could hold the greatest lessons. The forest on Earth remained unchanged, yet alive with countless stories of survival and intelligence. The spider, small and unassuming, moved carefully among the leaves, a silent teacher for those willing to observe. Rockthar and his students had learned the truth. Strength is not everything, but knowledge, patience, and respect make true power. And so, the story of the Zetherian students, the strongest warrior, and Earth's smallest spider came to an end, but the lessons endured. Across galaxies and generations, the wisdom of Earth's creatures would inspire those who recognized that intelligence, humility, and respect could overcome even the most daunting challenges. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the Zetherian voyager, carrying the students back to their homeworld. Rockthar gazed at them silently, feeling a quiet pride, not in his strength but in the growth and understanding they had all achieved. Earth had changed them, and in return they would carry its lessons into the cosmos. In the quiet of the forest, the spider waited, patient and alert. Small, yet powerful in ways unseen, it remained a reminder that even the tiniest beings could shape the fate of the mightiest warriors, and that respect for all life was the truest mark of strength.